Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStoryTV and the HerStory Podcast. This is Gertrude Matcha here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. Welcome back to the show. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. So I have yet another fascinating guest. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Kerry Wekelo. I am based in Reston, Virginia, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. We call it Northern Virginia, and I am 47 years old. And sharing a bit about my story, I grew up in the Shenandoah Valley on a farm, and my family had a business, a manufacturing business, and we grew up not only with a working farm, which was managed by a farm manager, but then this manufacturing company. So my upbringing was really hard work, not only from the farm side of things, but then also this company business that we had. So I started working when I was 5 years old. My grandmother was the chairman of the board. My grandfather had passed away when I was 5. So she kind of took over, and then my mom and her brothers took over. And what I really saw with that was they weren't always on the same page on things. And there was a bit of what could I say around the culture at the company and with the family wasn't exactly didn't feel good to me. That being said, they've been very successful and all has been well. It's just not exactly how I would do business. So I ended up going into university, studied finance and marketing. I even have a minor in psychology. And I went down this path going into consulting. And I always really was focused on people first and foremost. And then in 2005, I was moving to another state, and my brother was starting up a company called Actualize Consulting. And so I started with that and building out the organization. So for the first 5 years, we were very focused on financially and operationally getting the business up and running. And then in 2010, I literally was burnt out personally. I had 2 children. I didn't take proper maternity leave. And then at that same time, I had one of my best friends try to commit suicide. And that event, because I thought she was very happy and everything was going right in her life, it really made me stop to be like, am I really happy and what I'm doing? And when I unpacked it, I wasn't really happy, not only at work because we were just pushing, but also in my marriage, which from the outside looking in looked very, very good. So in 2010, 5 years after I'd been at Actualize, I knew I needed to make a change, and I wasn't exactly sure what that was. So I started to go down a bit of a internal path. I read countless self-help books. I did 500 hours of yoga teacher training. And what I realized is that I had always been on the go and busy versus just taking some time to sit and reflect. And then that's when all the answers started coming. How do we shift our organization? Because at the time we had 33% turnover. And then what do I do about being in a marriage that wasn't fulfilling? So I ended up staying with Actualize, which I'm still there now. And we have been really focused on our people and people first and foremost. And I didn't have like this huge plan, but what I decided in 2010 was that I couldn't like compartmentalize my life. Like I had to show up the same person at work, at home, with my friends, with my family. And that was leading from and being a person that is kind, that is grateful, that focuses on their self-care, and really overall all wellness, right? And so that's what I've been infusing into my life with my kids and family and work. And so, my story is really that you don't have to be a different person at work or with your family. Really being yourself first and foremost can be extremely powerful, and how you show up everywhere, and being that authentic self.
It sounds like you have been on quite a journey and you had to adjust your current way of being to survive this new world we're living in now. A lot has changed because of the pandemic, correct?
It has. And I was already on the path before the pandemic. So it really helped me adjust and help other people along the way as well, because I think many people realized that they needed to have more of, and I used to call it work life balance, but now I'm calling it life work balance, right? And that's something
Yes.
that I've been a big proponent of for the last 12 years. And so I was set up really well to handle the pandemic, and not only and even grow further as an individual.
So it really stretched you.
hmm
So did this lead to your new business venture now? What are you focused on now?
Yeah. So within the last 12 years, I've written two books. One is Culture Infusion, 9 principles to create and maintain a thriving organizational culture. And then the next one, which actually came out during the pandemic, is Gratitude Infusion. And that book has been really powerful during these more trying times, because gratitude is completely free. There's ways that we can be appreciative and grateful to everybody in our lives that can really help, lift the vibration. And so that's what I've been really focused on, and not only within my own company, but bringing that to other companies, other individuals, team building events. And it's such an easy way, and it feels like gratitude always feels good, right?
It sure does. And it does help just reset how you're feeling internally when
hmm
you pull one or two key things in your life that you're really grateful for.
hmm
So give me a description of your day. How does it start? How do you keep yourself balanced?
It depends on the day, but what I always say is I have this toolbox of practices that I go to. So I depending upon what I need in that day, but what I always do is I need to have some sort of movement, whether that's a short walk, even if I'm not feeling well, even if I go for a 5 minute, I need to get some sort of movement in my body. And then what I use gratitude for is really with all my interactions. And when you're being grateful to other people, it's not only to them, but it's also, why am I even grateful for what I've done today and how I'm showing up, right? So I focus on gratitude quite a bit. And where I find it very powerful is if you're in a challenging situation, instead of focusing on that spiral or the stress of the situation, okay, like to ground yourself, what am I grateful for right now? What can I be happy about versus this challenge that I'm dealing with? And many times too, if you are dealing even in a conflict with somebody, if you lead with, I'm really grateful for something within the situation, maybe they're teaching you a lesson, it's going to diffuse the challenge or the conflict with that person as well.
I like that. I'm going to ask you a few questions and I will go off camera when you answer because I want to repurpose the videos for our TikTok account.
Okay.
So, I want to take you back to, let's say, 3, 4 years ago. If you could go back, let's say at the time of crisis when your friend almost committed suicide, and if you could have a conversation with the younger you, based on what life has taught you up to this point, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you give that younger person?
Okay. The 3 nuggets I would give my younger self would be to not take things so seriously. Make sure that you're always having fun and focusing on the good and every day. Also being authentic and true to who you really are. And I believe we all have that internal gut feeling, that intuition, listening, really, really listening to how you're feeling and those signs is extremely important. And number 3 would be to not be so hard on myself, because I think that's something that we all struggle with, me personally too, being that overachiever type, but not being so hard on myself, I think would be the third one.
So now let's give a few pieces of advice to young moms, women who are juggling so many balls right now,
Mm-hmm.
struggling with motherhood. Some people are still having to parent from home. How are you doing it? How many kids do you have? How are you? You said work-life balance, but life-work balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
start with that. Your work-life balance. How does that look? How are you juggling all of these balls?
So I like to call it life work balance. And I have 2 kids. I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, each with different, they're completely different kids. And, there's a lot that I have to do as a mom. And then I also am the chief operating officer of a consulting company. And I'm very active in my community. So how do I juggle all of that? I would say the first tip that I always go back to and I remind myself of every day is that you have to take care of yourself, because that old saying of, or when you're in the airplane, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself. So you have to take time, even if it's 5 minutes a day, you have to take time for yourself each and every day and make sure that you're doing things that inspire you and lift you up, because you can't be a good employee or a good, in a relationship or a good mom, if you're not taking care of yourself first and foremost.
Fantastic. Now, let's move on to the ways you're helping people. You've written these 2 amazing books. Let's go through each book and what can people expect from each of the books that you've written?
Okay. So the first book is Culture Infusion, 9 Principles to Create and Maintain a Thriving Organizational Culture. And that's how can you, as a leader or anybody in the organization, really come through as a leader and really make sure that you have this thriving organizational culture. And it's from how you effectively communicate, how you focus on the well-being of your team members. Leading by example is a huge one. I also talk about how, surveying your team members about things that are on your mind, so you really can come back with a collective resolution for forward movement within your organization. And then also really focusing on team connection, which is extremely important, especially as many companies are still doing remote working or even hybrid working. The other book is Gratitude Infusion, and that's just a kind of a spin-off from Culture Infusion. And it's very focused on ways that you can practice gratitude, not only personally, but also in your organizations, how you can do that with your teams. An example of that is with my own internal team. I don't do it as a firm wide. We do more things around recognizing star players, key players, awesome team players, like really publicly being grateful. And then just as we practice daily. So there's lots of easy, accessible, free tools on gratitude. But then with your own internal team, one of my favorites is each week we do something that we're internally grateful for, externally grateful for, like somebody on the team, or it could even be a friend or a family member. And then also what was a win for that week. So both books, lots of practical tips that you can use with your teams and also personally.
Fantastic. Now, what is the best way that people can get hold of you? Are you coaching? Are you mentoring other women who are in this space?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of my favorite things, is to coach, be an advisor. But LinkedIn is definitely the easiest way. Kerry Wekelo on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Twitter and Instagram as well as Kerry Wekelo.
And what is your website?
Actualizeconsulting.com.
Okay, so we're going to share that at the bottom of the screen. If anybody out there is inspired to get hold of Kerry and solicit her help, please get in touch. And Kerry, parting question. If time was an illusion and I could take you into the future, so you could have a conversation with the future. You're 100 years old, you've got your grandchildren, your dogs, your cats, and you're sitting on your rocking chair. Based on how you're living your life right now, what would you say to this wise woman who's led you that far?
Keep dreaming big. Don't be small. Keep being big. You have a lot of passion, so keep helping people and keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up.
Awesome. Kerry, thank you so much for coming online and being with us today and sharing your amazing story. Thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story movement is trying to collate a collection of women's stories that are unusual, that are empowering, that are uplifting. And Kerry, you certainly have demonstrated that this morning for us. So have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, everybody, wherever you are in the world. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. And Kerry, don't go away. I would love to invite you to speak at our International Online Summit in May. Hold on for me a second.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.